Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna pray? I think the entire thesis of this season was built on Don Mancini getting Chucky to say that lie. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. A little late, but anybody who's followed this channel and from where I started, you knew that Chucky was going to be a part of this. I did all of Chucky season 1, so I have to do Chucky season 2 because it is one of my favorite, just guilty pleasures, actually just pleasurable shows. It's fun. Don Mancini is having a lot of fun. When you get to play with your own toys, you can do whatever the hell you want to on a TV network. Have at it. I'm going to talk about the first 2 episodes in this one because I didn't get to do them separately. But from this point on, I will talk about them each one-on-one. The first episode is called Halloween 2, and the second is called The Sinners Are Much More Fun. I'm going to kind of talk about them bleeding into each other because they're basically a direct lead-in to the other. With spoilers. So if you haven't watched them yet, get out of here. The first episode is kind of a reset for the series. I think a lot of the times the best writing happens when you write as if you are writing as you may not get a second season or you may not get a second film. So you write and put your put all the stakes up and put your characters and whatnot like backs against a wall. And that's what happens at the end of season 1. Season 1 ends big. There's like 75 plus Chucky dolls. I think 75 is the number they're sort of going at. Number matters because we don't quite know that. But there's a bunch of Chucky dolls in a truck speeding off to try to take over the world. That's basically how it ends, with Tiffany holding Andy at gunpoint, and the truck runs off. We pick up at the beginning of Halloween 2, right at that truck. And so Andy's still speeding off. What we do is we come into all the Chuckies talking in the background. They're sort of conversing, and what we've learned is that the consciousness was put into these Chucky dolls prior to the events that happened in that warehouse, the toy store, the room, at the very end. The theater at the very end. So they don't know that that's Andy because they haven't quite seen Andy older yet. The OG Chucky does, but he's gone. And they don't know that's who the hell that is as far as Tiffany. So they're kind of just unaware. Calamity ensues, and Andy gets a hold of a gun, shoots Tiffany, her head pops off, so that doll is now off the board. And then he runs off of a cliff. And what we believe is that all of those Chucky dolls and Andy are no longer on the board. We then skip ahead 6 months and sort of the ramifications of what happens to everybody. Jake is now in foster care. He's with 2 foster parents and a little boy who he sort of has gravitated to. He's okay with the family. He feels that they're better than what he had, so that's why he's not too complaining. But he really does like the boy. He has got an attachment to the kid Gary. We start with the scene after the 6-month jump that Jake has to leave Devon. And Jake leaves Devon because he's going off to a school somewhere else in another city, and Devon's there with his new foster parents, who we learn is super rich. They just wanted to showcase him around, which leads me to believe that they're white. They just want to showcase them around. Their proud black kid. I don't know if they know that he's gay, but proud black kid. And then they just go off. So he's basically on his own for the majority of what we see in this. But they have to separate. And in there, they have sort of a heartfelt moment that they're like, we can't kiss in front of them because they don't know. They're not going to expect that. So it's kind of just shake hands. And then we get a little sort of cheesy Riverdale moment where Devon chases after Jake's car, screams. They stop the car. Jake gets out and they kiss. And Gary's like, ooh. He's doing this whole old school Batman, Adam West era, holy whatever Batman type of thing when he sees them. But holy spoiler, holy reveal type of thing. And he sees them kissing. The parents see them kissing. But he's like, I don't care at this point. But that leads to where we get to more of a time jump. Now a full year has passed. And Devon and Jake have not seen each other. Devon's still been waiting for him to come back. Jake's like, I can't get up there. I'm taking care of my kid. And then because of what we did, because of the kids, my parents, they don't want me around you. They're not really favorable to that. So they have not seen each other. Lexi also has not seen the other 2 boys because she feels sort of isolated. She feels like they fell in love with each other. They've had a relationship. They're together. They don't really care or need her, so she's sort of ignoring their phone calls. She's also medicating through coke, weed, pills, whatever she can get her hands on. She's going through a lot. Anxiety. She lost her dad. There's a killer doll that she can't talk to anybody about or let anybody else know about because they'll all think she's crazy and need to have them all committed. And that's sort of the lay of the land with the big three, with the main three characters that we have had. And so in this episode, while Jake and Devin are sort of having a phone conversation back and forth about why he's not coming to see him for Halloween, they start getting random phone calls. Chucky starts doing his best Ghostface impression. He starts calling them and taunting them and saying that I'm watching. I just want to make sure that you are where you are, basically to track them and to make sure that they keep an eye on all three of those people, because it seems like the entire end goal of this is for Chucky to make sure that he kills those three. In that, he shows the video of them approaching Lexi's new house with Caroline, the little girl that Chucky doll fell in love with and was kind of manipulating and using. He approaches that, but he's showing them, taunting them. He's basically taunting them. He puts them on mute so that they can't shout out to Caroline to like close the door and everything. But they let her in, and then the video cuts off, the feed cuts off. And so the boys have to do everything they can to get over there to her to kind of give her a warning. Devin calls the cops. But they can't call the cops to say Chucky or even mention that name because then they're just going to think it's a hoax and it's crazy. So they just say, hey, somebody's breaking in. Lexi is, at that point, highly intoxicated and attempting to lose her virginity. She's just throwing caution to the wind. And the cops barge in because they believe that they got the call that somebody was there. They're like, do you know a Devin? She's like, yeah, I do. And that's when she starts like, oh crap, I should have been answering my phone that's been going off all this time. They may have been trying to warn me. What? And then Caroline says, hey, I did let somebody in. She was like, how tall is he? And it's like, about that high. And that's when Caroline's like, oh crap, did I mess up? Yes, Caroline, you did. The next sequence we start seeing that Caroline, Lexi, and her mom are in therapy. And in therapy, they start going over things, and Caroline's mom is still trying to put on the brave face and say, like, because she's the mayor still, although her approval rating is plummeted, she's still the mayor. She wants to pretend that everything is hunky-dory and everything's fine. Not knowing that her daughter is self-medicating, and her other daughter, Caroline, is just kind of a shell of herself because she hates dolls. She doesn't want to be around anything like that. But in that, what we get is that they are trying to get out of Caroline, to stop saying that Chucky was the one responsible. And they were like, we're going to put it all on Junior, which was Lexi's boyfriend. Like, it's all the murders have been pinned on him. And then Mom starts to sort of try to blame Lexi a little bit and say, hey, I could have told you this whole time. I warned you. All that said, Caroline is not believing the dolls are anything but terrible. She's like, I don't want to be around a doll. I don't want to be around a doll at all. The therapist, this is a wild way of trying to treat this. The therapist then gives her a doll, not a Chucky doll, not a good guy doll, but a doll that's like a wedding bell or bella or something like that. Gives that to Caroline. And it's like, here, see, not so bad. And she's like, do you want to take that home? Why? Why is this the therapy that you're doing? But they're trying to do everything possible to say that the doll thing that you keep and your sister and her friends keep talking about, it's not real. So you take the doll home. Lexi beats the shit out of that doll. Just as a test to make sure that, hey, this can't be Chucky or Tiffany. So we're going to beat the living daylights out of this doll. She does that, and she tapes it up and holds it to the chair, and then goes to sleep. While she's in her room, about to take another line, I think. She's drugging out. Oh, no, she's smoking weed at this point. While she's in bed trying to get her high on, the boys type on the window, and we have a reuniting of our three main leads of Lexi, Devin, and Jake. In this, we get a couple of moments in this episode, and these don't work for me. And maybe it's some of the acting from Jake, maybe it's just the way that it's positioned. But Jake starts putting blame on himself. He starts getting really emotional, and it just doesn't read well. But he starts putting the blame on him. Like, I never should have bought this doll. But this is my fault. Blah 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 blah. We don't have time for that. Also, in that moment, Jake starts to get really accusatory on Lexi about the drugs she's taking. He's like, hey, it's just that, right? You're not doing pills, anything else. And she's like, hold on. We haven't seen each other in forever, and this is the first thing you hit me with. You're coming with me at worse than my mom. Like, calm down. We got bigger things to fry. I think it is important to know that they do care. It's just Lexi is very much defensive and deflective and doesn't want to let anybody else in. So they then go to Caroline's room and see that the doll is no longer taped up. It's actually in the bed with Caroline. Jesus. And so as they are trying to figure out what to do next, just trying to stab, like do something, get that doll away from her. Uh, Lexi's mom starts coming, and the boys have to hop in the closet, which I know is a metaphor. I know they're doing that on purpose, but the two gay kids in the closet. Well done. I get it. And then Lexi talks the mom out of it, and they head out while the boys have to sort of escape. The next morning, Lexi, her mom, and Caroline have to have a press conference. The press conference is just a sort of a mayor thing. It's an obligation. It goes south because in that the press conference is the same guy who asked the question last season at the end was like, hey, after Caroline was like, hey, Chucky told me to kill my mom. He brought it up like we have the visual evidence. He brings it up in this press conference, so it becomes sort of a hack job to try to get them to flip out. And mom does flip out and tells them, get out of the house, get out now. She does, and then that intensifies Lexi. Lexi has to go get herself together, get her body, her mind right. So she's going to go take some more drugs. At that point, Devin and Jake re-enter the home. They're back there, and then Caroline opens the door and sees Gary, Jake's little brother, there with Chucky. A Chucky. Which version? Which one? We don't know, but it's a Chucky with a bomb. And he's got him dead to rights. So they all come in. They're sitting at the couch. It is Chucky, Gary, Caroline, and then Jake and Devin. And that Chucky is there specifically to kill all three of them. So he's like, I'm not pushing this bomb until Lexi comes down those steps. What's funny in this is that, and I love it, it's a good piece and it's a good way to show how horror is going to evolve or how Chucky's movements get quicker and faster. But he's like, look, I don't have to run after people or have to like hold somebody hostage at gunpoint or knife point to get a car to move from place to place. I can just call Uber and they pick me up and drop me off easily. And that's how Gary and Chucky got from where they were to where they are now. In that, Lexi finally comes down the steps, but earlier Devin grabbed a taser, same taser from last season, grabs a taser and tases Chucky. As soon as Lexi starts coming down, Chucky doll flies. The bomb sets loose a little bit, letting a little bit of the green residue it has out. A little tussling happens, and then Chucky eventually gets a hold of the button and is able to blow up just Gary. Unfortunately, Gary is no longer with us. That was a very quick in and out of the new character and old character, Gary, Jake's little brother. And so the episode ends with Jake, Lexi, and Devin in front of a sort of a parole board, if you will, of what to do next with these kids. Two of them are foster kids. One is with their parents, but now they are all responsible for the murder of a kid because they can't say, "Hey, it was a killer doll," because one, the doll blew itself up. There's no remnants of it. But two, that sounds crazy. Like you sound nuts if you say that. And so the foster parents obviously don't want Jake anymore. He feels remorseful because he's like, I love Gary more than the parents did, but because also Gary was not their kid. Gary was also a foster to them. But the ruling is instead of sending them to juvenile or to jail, they're going to go to a sort of a reformed Catholic school. They're going to go to a school called the Catholic School of the Incarnate Lord. And the episode ends with them pulling up in the bus to go to that school. And then they start seeing that, hey, two things are true. One, that Chucky was like a kamikaze mission. Like he just tried to kill himself. Like normally there's a little bit more self-preservation on the Chucky's behalf. So this is weird that he just all of a sudden like, I don't care about killing them. That gets them to start questioning, wait, how many Chuckies were on that truck and how many of them survived? And did Andy survive? Like they start questioning those type of things. The other thing is that Catholic school that they go to is the same halfway home boys school that Charles Lee Ray went to when he was a kid. So it's all coming full circle, all attaching to itself. They get dropped off, and then as they get dropped off, the UPS truck, or the shipping truck's not UPS, the shipping truck comes and it starts delivering a good guy doll. So this is all a part of a big master plan that whatever these Chuckies are doing, they know what's happening. That's the end of episode 1. Episode 2 comes in, right out on the top of that, they're starting to get acclimated into this Catholic Hogwarts, if you will. They start introducing new characters. Nadine is the roommate to Lexi. She is a redhead klepto who is in there and is a very higher energy than Lexi, who's sort of now down. Um, and they all get acclimated and put into their rooms. Lexi mentions that hey, there's a kid here that used to be the bully to me when I was in school. He's 3 years older. He used to make my life a living hell. He's worse than Chucky. So and he's here now. So you might just want to be aware of it. That just puts a new player on the board in that form. And then the Father Bryce, is played by Devin Sawa, who played Jake's father and uncle in the previous series, is now playing Father Bryce. And there is a quick little throwaway line that's like, he reminds me a lot of my father. Just to kind of clean that up. Because I think if this continues to go on, I feel like Devin Sawa is going to be that one person that always is. He's playing an anthology character while everybody else is still continuing the story on. Fine. I'll buy it. So they start getting the kids set in school. In that, I guess nowhere in their jacket does it say that Devin and Jake are gay, nor are they in a relationship. Lexi is told that, hey, this is an all-girls floor on the second floor, so none of the guys can come in. But if you bring them in with the doors open, it should be fine. She sort of throws away a line like, they're not going to be a problem for anybody on this floor. The nun that's bringing them doesn't quite get it, and she doesn't know yet, but I think they will. Father Bryce clearly doesn't know because he's like leaving them in the room together, and he starts going on about like the sexual desires of men to women and the opposite sex and all that. Meanwhile, these two guys are into each other. But Jake lets Devin know like, hey, we need to keep this quiet because Catholics tend to not be fond of gay folks. So let's keep that to ourselves. They start getting into school. Lexi confronts the bully. The bully seems to be on the up and up, although there definitely seems to be some weird things going on there. But he's like, no, I've heard about all the crazy things that's been happening to you. You losing your father, and you being killed by being tortured by a Chucky doll, a roaming doll. So I know you're going through it, and I'm here for you. Very much that passive aggressive way to sort of gaslight Lexi. So it just throws her in more of a stupor to self-intoxicate. So that doll that was delivered at the end of the first episode comes into play as one of the nuns is just writing stuff in the main office, Father Bryce's office. He falls twice, picks it up once, and then she's like, I'm just going to leave it there. And then all of a sudden, Chucky jumps in front of her and scares her to death. She has a heart attack. It's a funny death. It's not one of the more violent or creative deaths that the show or Chucky has had, but it's one of those ones where he's like, oh my God, I'm so ugly that you just died by looking at me. The reaction there is great. And that's where we get the I am Chucky, wanna pray line, which is pretty well done. I'm telling you, Brad Dourif was like, I get to say this? Bet. And so we have our first death at the school now that these kids have been brought there. While all of this is happening, Tiffany is inside of Jennifer Tilly's body. It's a wild way to keep track of all this. But Tiffany is inside of Jennifer Tilly and is now living lavishly in a home that she has spent the majority of Jennifer Tilly's money on. And she's still keeping Nika tragically imprisoned. If you don't recall, she has taken off all of her appendages, so both her arms and both her legs. She's now just upper torso with a head that can connect to Chucky when provoked. But we see in the first shot that we have of Jennifer Tilly / Tiffany is that she wakes up happy, and then all of a sudden she realizes she has blood on her hands. And there's a Tiffany doll in her. The head that was shot off in episode 1 is now just hanging out in her bed. She then makes breakfast for Nika, and Nika's like, I hate you. Why are we doing this? And they're going back and forth. And we learn that a year time has passed for them and doing all of this. And Nika is triggered into becoming Chucky to sort of say, hey, how did this Tiffany doll end up in my head? Look, in an amazing twist, Fiona is killing it. Fiona Dourif, Brad Dourif's daughter, flips from being Nika to Chucky like that, and it's stupid how good she is. But and lets Tiffany know that, hey, I'm coming for you and those 3 kids, and I'm going to kill you all. At this moment, it still seems like Nika is being possessed by Chucky and vice versa, and then out of control. It's at that point that Tiffany lets Nika know also that her kids are on the way. Glenn and Glenda are coming, and so she's prepping for them. And fortunately, when they come, I'm going to have to ball gag you and put you in the room because I don't want you sprouting things up. There's also a detective that starts coming around, snooping around because of Nika's disappearance and because of some of the murders that have occurred. He starts snooping around and try to get some more information. First time, one time, Tiffany handles it and kind of sends him on his way. I'm gonna go back to story A, if you will, with the kids. So the kids, Jake and the kids see that the doll is in that office. Um, and Father Bryce knows their jacket and knows that there's a connection to the killer doll. He's like, but it's just a doll. We're not worrying about it. So he locks the door to his office, and the kids go to school. In that, Jake asks to go to the restroom. He does. He breaks into Father Bryce's office and starts to question the Chucky doll. The Chucky doll doesn't come alive yet, and he starts swearing in the church. And Father Bryce is there and sees it. And then he decides that the best situation is to lock Chucky in the room with Jake, and so he does. And Jake doesn't really get any information out of him. Jake hits him with a Bible, and then he scurries off, takes a photo of Jake, and then just scurries up the chimney. And then Father Bryce eventually comes back and is like, "Where's Chucky?" He's like, "I don't know. I genuinely have no idea." And they start having sort of a heated conversation back and forth. But then he's allowed to rejoin his friends Devin and Lexi, and he lets Devin and Lexi know that, hey, that Chucky wasn't trying to kill me. And so now they're kind of like, I don't know what these Chuckies are up to, nor do I know how many are out there. First one was a kamikaze mission. This one is now taking photos and like scouting to make sure that we are where we say we are, or we're all in place to kind of like set whatever trap they have. That night, everybody's going to bed. Poor Lexi is still trying to get her drugs off. But unfortunately, Chucky wants a photo of that as well. So Chucky is now visibly seen by Nadine, Lexi's roommate, and they start screaming their behinds off, but not before Chucky does get a photo of Lexi getting some drugs on. Another photo. She scurries off. She lets the boys know in a coded message that, hey, check the bathroom. I think that's where he's at. Their story ends where they find him in the bathroom. They tie him up, and they go get Nadine and Lexi and come in. It's like, well, why haven't you killed him? Why is he still alive? What are you doing? And they're like, this one isn't trying to kill us. This is a scout. And they have him gagged so they can't hear his response, but he's saying stuff back to them. But that sequence ends with them just kind of standing over a tied up Chucky. We go back to Tiffany and Nika. She preps for the day for her kids to show up. So Tiffany takes Nika up to the room, ball gags her, locks the door. In that sequence, we start seeing Nika turn to the side a little bit and not have the ball gag. This is all in her head. And in that, she starts having a conversation with Chucky. So it is now clear that she can have a one-on-one conversation with Chucky at any point in time. Now, who takes control of her actual physical self? I don't know if that's still controlled by pain or how it comes in, but they can have a connection with each other. And in that, we learn that begrudgingly, they are working together to kill Tiffany, because they both have a common goal, to murder her. Tiffany starts heading down the door. Doorbell rings, and she thinks it's her kid. So she opens the door, and it's the detective that was there before. She lets the detective in, and then kills him. Blood's all over the place, and she starts trying to clean up that while, you guessed it, Glenn and Glenda actually do show up. They show up and pull up in a pink caddy, it looks like, with a they-them license plate and front plate, vanity plates. And they just come in and they see Mom cleaning up blood. And she's like, hey, kids, and that's how the episode ends. I'm actually glad that I did these two episodes together because they sort of act like a beginning prologue to sort of reset everything that happened in that first one. We got the kids in sort of a Catholic Hogwarts. And we're sort of seeding the seeds of what's happening for Chucky's plan. Chucky hasn't really killed anyone other than Gary, poor Gary, in a bomb, but we don't actually visually see that. It's not like a violent death. It's just a big puff of smoke that puffs up into Chucky's face. Well done. But the story's kind of like, all right, let's take what we built up in that first season, shrink it back down a little bit so it's not as big, and then start telling a new story this time. It doesn't seem like Andy is dead. If some of those Chucky's dolls are still alive, then and they don't know how many are alive, then Andy is out there somewhere as well. And now that the kids are at 4 in the main cast, with Nadine being a part of the original 3, for this season to work and for any horror movies to work, and because you're attached to all of them, one of them has to die. We can't go through this entire season, because some of the things that I hate about Stranger Things, but we can't go through this entire season without one of them perishing. And I don't know who that is, but it's going to be gut wrenching if and when it does happen. The biggest thing is, again, Fiona Dorff is doing magic, as acting back and forth as Chucky slash Nika, and I think the just added bonus of Tiffany watching Jennifer Tilly movies and like reciting them as Jennifer Tilly, it's meta crazy. I love that the layers that this stuff is having, but I love that at the end of it is still a fun horror Chucky flick or show. But those are the first 2 episodes of Chucky. I will be back from now on weekly to kind of discuss this show as it goes along. But what did you guys think about the first 2 episodes of season 2 of Chucky? Go ahead and leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. And we also have a podcast by the same name that's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any other place podcast. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.